You guys might already know that I like to put myself into situations in which I know nothing about what I'm dealing with. Exhibit number 645. Oh my God. Somehow I did not see this coming. Oh. All right, first things first, I need to figure out how to get the engine up because that's going to scrape as soon as the front of the trailer gets onto the hitch, which is not a problem. With this boat being full of water, it is impossible for us to pick it up and get onto the wall here. So no idea what we're doing here. Trying to figure it out. Let's see how it goes. The jump starter connected. I found this button that says drive left, and look at that. Figured it out. Oh, wow. I'm so smart. So now I'm gonna have to flag down the forklift driver if he's passing by so that he can try and pick this up. Otherwise, I could try and use a scissor jack, but on this surface that would be very dangerous and it's probably going to fall over. Some temporary lights for the trailer because this trailer didn't come with any lights, and yeah, water is slowly leaking out. I think sooner or later we're gonna be on the way. All right, so I secured the back of this. This is probably wrong in so many ways, but that's the best I could come up with the straps that I had, and we're gonna go nice and slow and hopefully make it back. Picking this thing up was not too hard, and we also don't have a pin here, so there's a temporary zip tie to keep this properly secured to the ball. All right, got the paperwork and just one little once over. Would rather not have this wire dragging on the ground. I think, did the motor move? It might have settled. I think these hydraulic guys here might leak a little and allow the motor to come down, which we really don't want, so I'm gonna try and get this up again. Hopefully this is gonna hold the motor up. We'll find out soon enough, I guess. It didn't take me too long to realize that this little thing is not enough to hold the boat, the front of the boat to the trailer, so we added a strap here, and that keeps tension and keeps this thing from jumping around. I've driven a boat maybe once, maybe twice in my life, and both times it was just in the middle of a lake where there was nothing to hit, and it was somebody else's boat, and they just allowed me to steer for a little bit. So needless to say, I've never owned a boat before either, but here we go. It's safe to say that Wisconsin is kind of getting to me because this is a very Wisconsin thing to do, to own a boat, and well, here I am. And while I know absolutely nothing about what we're dealing with here, I know, well, I can figure a few things out from what we're looking at. Here's what we do know. It was being sold by an insurance, meaning that there was some sort of an insurance event causing them to send it off to Copart. We also know, based on this registration sticker here, is that last time this thing was registered was in 2022, which is really not good. It means that it's been 3 years since this thing has been properly used. And I think that checks out because, I mean, there's literal plants growing out of the floor here. There are these tiny little guys that were getting plenty of water and sunlight to create their own little ecosystem in here. Even though this thing sat outside for God knows how long, the interior is in good shape. I mean, well, the existing interior, because we were missing a lot of it here. I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be another seat over here. I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be a lot of covers in all of these little compartments, as well as there should be some sort of a cover existing here. As you can see, we have a lot of screws just into the perimeter. Something was supposed to be here. Now, the good news is that the water has drained and we no longer have you know, standing water inside the boat, because generally the water should be on the outside of the boat. There also should be a battery in there. That's where we were jump starting it to try and get the motor to go up, which it did, but I think the little hydraulic shocks or whatever those things are called are leaking over time, and from bouncing around the motor would settle down. We do have some speakers, we do have steering wheel, keys, we have a paddle, and that's good because our motor came with no prop on it. And that's another confusing thing about this. One theory I have so far is that maybe the same thing happened to the previous owner that happened to us, where the motor was kind of settling down, and while they were driving, the prop got caught on the ground and got demolished, and that's how they filed their insurance claim. It's just odd that the trailer is missing trailer lights. There's no wiring for the lights anywhere. All of that was ripped out. The battery was ripped out. Just random things that are missing. The winch to pull the boat onto the trailer is missing. So it's like, before they gave it to insurance, it looks like they just decided to take off everything they could that's easily removable and is worth any kind of money. I mean, they even took the trailer jack. There's no trailer jack. That's why we're sitting on this. And luckily this did elevate the trailer enough to let us drain all the water. So that's a bonus. But I mean, where is all this stuff? So I believe this here is what keeps this closed. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, there's stuff here, so that's a good sign. Looks like we have a 3-cylinder motor here. All right, so now I gotta try and get this thing over to a source of water, because I don't have hose receptacles on this side of the building. Just as long as I don't drop the boat. We don't want to drop the boat. That would suck. Don't mind me, just walking my boat. Oh, too fast, too fast. Whew, that's some hard work. Oh. That was harder than I anticipated it to be. I need a second, I'll be right back. Okay, so based on my research, this is what they call a earmuff, I think, and that's what allows you to test the engine and allows you to send water into the motor to keep it cool, and also to flush it, because apparently it's a good idea, especially if you take this thing into salt water. You want to flush out the cooling system with fresh water and get rid of all the corrosive stuff in there. So you would connect this and send a bunch of water through the motor to try and flush that all out. So this thing is supposed to go over our water intakes here. The fact that we don't have a prop in here kind of helps a lot. All right, so this is the best I could do after struggling for a little while. It's definitely not going to hold water perfect, but I don't think it's meant to. I think it's pretty expected that there's going to be water flowing out. As long as there's some access to water, it should be able to suck it in and cool this thing down. Let's see what's in there. You can see absolutely nothing, so I'm gonna have to give it a little sniff test. It smells like gas, and I'm not noticing any odd smells, so we're gonna assume that it's fine. I would normally also check the oil, but this is a 2-stroke. So you add the oil into the fuel, and then it gets lubrication from that. So we're not even gonna have to worry about oil. Okay, so that's basically the result I was kind of expecting. To start, we gotta spin this, and then we need to push and hold to choke it. And so the starter is definitely doing what it should be doing, more or less. Potentially this jump starter is not really strong enough. And I'm not saying it's going to catch on fire, but hey, having one of these nearby is probably a good idea. Oh yeah. So far we're not firing at all. Could be bad gas, could be lack of fuel, could be a million different things. I probably should have tried and cleaned the carbs, but I was too lazy and too excited to see if it would fire up, so we might as well just stick to that. The good news is that it's not knocking. The good news is that it's spinning and not locked up. The bad news is that it's not starting. So let's try some starter fluid. Oppa! Haha! Oh yeah. So we're definitely having issues with fuel delivery. Obviously, it is willing to start on brake parts cleaner. So for whatever reason, the fuel that it's got in it isn't enough to let it start. I'll probably have to look into those carbs and fuel lines and whatnot. But the good news is that the motor is more or less good. We're just gonna have to do carb things, which I absolutely hate doing. We got this. It's a $500 boat. Like, I expected this. So if you know almost as much about carburetors as I do, this here is our carburetors. There's 3 of them. They're inline 3s, 1 for each of the 3 cylinders. There is fuel intake into the carburetors, and it looks like it goes down to the bottom to the other side of the motor. What I can't see here is the fuel filter. It says filter right on it, so that's good news. So I'm assuming this goes straight out of the tank, gets sucked into here. Probably here we have the mechanically driven fuel pump. I'm guessing, I could be absolutely wrong. That creates pressure and sends this down this hose into that hose we saw on the other side of the carburetors. Checking our fuel filter, that would be a great place to start. So all we need is a flathead screwdriver. And the fuel filter looks nice. Let's try and crank the motor again and try and collect whatever comes out of this tube here. Now I have zero idea how big the fuel tanks are in these, but I imagine relatively sizable. After all, this is a pretty big motor, I think. So probably like 10 gallons, maybe. Oh, look, there we go. There's a little pump thing. So I don't even have to crank the motor. I can just use this guy to pull the fuel into our cup here. Okay, so there's still no fuel coming out, and that kind of explains why we wouldn't start. Oh, there we go. It's really green. I don't think it should be green unless maybe that's some sort of a additive, like, you know, you're supposed to add oil into these. Maybe there's just some sort of special oil for boats that could be greenish. Let's ask ChatGPT. No, green gasoline inside your boat is not normal, though that green color itself can have an explanation. Gasoline might look green because some fuel suppliers add dye to gasoline for identification. Marine gasoline might sometimes have a slight tint if it contains additives. Fuel stabilizers or detergents can tint fuel. And now we pumped all the gasoline through, so the system is primed and potentially it's even going to fire up. I'm not positive, but I think just a couple of pumps, maybe one more for good measure. Maybe let's do another one. There we go. That should be enough. All right, you got this. Oh yeah. Okay, it was really close. I mean, it started up on its own fuel, so I think that's a good sign. I gave 3 more pumps. Let's try again. Haha! Yes! That's so cool. We got a running boat, you guys. I can't believe it. This is so cool. So I guess all I have left now is to buy a new prop and then take it out on the water. That's it. And I also need to do a boat safety course so that I can legally operate a boat in Wisconsin. Okay, it started making a very weird noise from the dash, and I don't know what that was. So for whatever reason, our horn is just permanently engaging. Unless that is some sort of sign that maybe it's like overheating or something like that. Too bad it doesn't have any kind of dash lights. As soon as I turn the ignition on. Yeah, I mean, we really don't get a whole lot here. We don't have any kind of warnings for it overheating. Okay, as I kind of sort of suspected, the buzzing noise, actually, it is the horn, but it is also the boat's way to tell you that it's overheating the motor. I did kind of read some concerning information online saying that if it gets to the buzzer, it might really be unhappy at that point already. They usually really don't like overheating, and if it gets to the point that it sounds the buzzer, then it might already be overheated too far. But I think I turned it off quite quickly, so I'm not too worried about it. I think we're gonna be fine. But apparently there's an impeller in the lower unit of the motor, which allegedly is this guy over here. And somewhere in here there is a water pump. I'm assuming it's all part of this assembly here, so I'd have to disassemble that. And inside of here is the impeller that actually creates the pressure for the water to be sent up there. So probably it just wasn't sucking the water in as well as it should have been, and that allowed it to overheat, and hopefully we didn't do any damage. It would be really unfortunate if we did. There is some bolts down here at the bottom, and if we remove those, theoretically this entire assembly should slide off and we should be able to get our eyes onto the impeller. And with that removed, that should be able to slide out. As always, theoretically, yeah. Okay, all right. Cool. So here's what we've got. It looks really dry, no water, nothing, and it should have been sucking the water in from here. So what ended up happening is despite me having connected the earmuffs and sending water into the motor, none of the water was actually getting into the places it needs to go, which is really not good because I've let it run a pretty long time. Scary, very scary, but we're just gonna hope that we didn't let it run long enough to do any kind of damage. The impeller is located inside this little housing that's held in by 4 bolts. With those removed, the entire thing can slide down the shaft and reveal the impeller and the entire very simple assembly. This guy doesn't seem to show any immediate signs of failure, but you never know, maybe it swelled up and just isn't rotating as well as it should be when it's new. My first impressions from owning a boat is that this is pretty easy. I mean, everything is relatively easily accessible. I mean, I removed this thing by just doing, what, like 5 bolts? All right, after a lot of hammering and prying and whatnot, we got this guy out. So let's just wipe this down and install our new seal. I also want to clean off the surface after all the prying. So we're just gonna kind of grind it down a little bit. Okay, so based on when we removed this guy, we know that the fins were rotating in that direction, clockwise, so we just gotta try and twist this in after I grease this up. There we go. Okay, so that's what that looks like, and now it can just slide it right on there and we bolt it back up. And once that is all done, we can test it, and we can tell that it's doing a better job now because we have water spinning out from the top of our lower unit and the exhaust. And while we were at it, we also made sure that our throttle works, as well as the gear case actually spins the prop shaft. Okay, now that we're more or less confident that the motor in this thing is good, I think we can start investing money into this boat. And first we're gonna bring the trailer up to par so that, you know, we have all the conveniences of a boat trailer, one of which is having an actual proper winch rather than a strap. Get this guy on here. All right, our next task is to get trailer wiring all the way through the frame of the trailer for our lights to work. Now, in order to do that, I'm gonna grab a tape measure and just feed it through this entire frame rail. I can then take our right side wiring for the right light, attach it here, and now I can just try and pull it through, and hopefully it doesn't get stuck somewhere. Okay, safe to say that this was a successful task. Now I just have to do this once more on the other side, and then we'll start connecting and mounting all of our trailer lights. All right, that should be sufficient. All right, supposedly our new prop is in here. It is smaller than I would have expected it to be, but I mean, I looked up the specs, so supposedly that's the right one. So we have our thrust washer all the way in the bottom here, and then we want the keyed side out, so this just slides onto that. A lock washer and nut. And now I should be able to just lock up this nut with the washer, and that should prevent it from spinning around. Щось є.
Чекаємо, хай прогрівається.
Ага.
Вона ж так, у нього на холодно ніхера.
Це знаєш який рік? 88-й.
Солодка родилася в мені.
Можна сказати. Напевно.
О, він поворачується, диви. Тепер в другу сторону. О.
Що, свій ходив?
Ні, та він високо над водою.
Перевіряємо? Окей.
Пробуй тут кружляти просто. Капітан Джек Воробей. О-о-о. Давай на всякий случай вдоль берега підемо поки що. Да. От винта. Бля, красота!